Howdy folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome to another Top 10 list. Today I'm going to talk about Top 10 Epic Euro Games. Now, this is going to be fairly divisive list. This is definitely my opinion. And people say, you don't play enough Epic Euro games. Well, I think the ones on here are pretty epic, and hopefully if you're watching this will be some help to you. I do want you to realize a couple things, though. There's a whole company called Splotter. I played a couple of their games, not a huge fan of them, but their games are fairly epic, like Antiquity and Roads and Boats. Some people like those, so if you don't like what's on my list, check out stuff from Splotter. Or from the designer Vasel, a lot of his games, I played one or two of his games, and they didn't make my list. But a lot of people really like his things. His latest game, for example, On Mars, very highly regarded. Then there's the whole 18XX series, like 1856, 1830, etc. I'm not even sure I would consider those to be Euro games. A Euro game, those are more like stock market train games, but also realize they're fairly heavy and epic. So with all those caveats, what made my list? Here we go. Number 10 is Rise of Queensdale. Now, this is a legacy game. It's the only legacy game on my list. I'm currently playing through Rise of Queensdale. I think I'm on my 12th game of it at this point in time. It is a game in which you roll dice and place them on a board, which allow you to take actions, and then the rules change every single game. The amount of content in this box is incredible. I still haven't seen all of it after 12 games or so. There's still more coming. And even though each game itself takes about an hour, it isn't overly heavy. The whole thing together has felt like a really strong, epic experience. Charterstone's another game that could be in this category, but Charterstone kind of felt like it was building up to a point and then you had a final game. Queensdale is not that way. It definitely has divergent paths, and I think when I'm done with it, I will be done. But it is an epic experience and thus made my list. 9 is Barrage. Barrage is a pretty heavy Euro game that I enjoy quite a bit, about building dams, diverting water to power stations, and then using those power stations to, get points, and that's how the game works. And it has a lot of stuff going on. Each game, when I'm done with it, I'm like, whew, that was a game. There's some very strong interactiveness where I will build a dam, take the water that was going to your power station, divert it to mine. There's a lot of different worker placement actions you can take, and it's just this grueling experience. When it's done, the game's not that long. It can often take 3 hours. But when it's done, it's just like, wow, we played an epic game. Number 8 is A Feast for Odin, the only Uwe Rosenberg game to make my list here. Caverna is a big, grandiose game in my opinion, and Agricola and so on. But A Feast for Odin, because there are 60 different action spaces, and even more if you play with the expansion, and so many choices in this game, it feels as you place these tiles and build this huge area, go out, and the Viking theme, it just has this big, epic feel to it. A Feast for Odin. Number 7 is Terraforming Mars with the expansions. By itself, Terraforming Mars is a pretty solid game. There are over 100 cards that combine in different ways, and I've been playing Terraforming Mars a lot lately and really enjoying it. When you add in an expansion, it expands it a bit. If you add in all the expansions, it is not a game I would do very often with all the expansions, but it will turn a good-sized Euro game into something bigger and beyond, where you have colonies you're sending out spaceships to, where there's now a little United Nations of sort that you're dealing with, and then more cards, and then Venus, and there's so much involved. When you add in all the expansions, it makes it a truly epic experience. Number 6 is either Wallenstein or Shogun. They're literally the same game with a different map and the tiniest and minor differences. Wallenstein came out first, then Shogun came out. Wallenstein was Germany, Shogun was Japan. Shogun had a lot of different rules, and then they re-released Wallenstein to match Shogun. So again, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. In this game, you are controlling different regions. There's a cube tower. Each turn, you're playing cards to match the different regions and taxing them or invading with them. This is a game that seems to have a lot, and it just has this big, overwhelming, exciting, experiential factor to it. There's combat in it. With a cube tower, you drop cubes and the ones that come out win. But there's also economics and building buildings. And they just had an expansion for it, a Kickstarter recently for like buildings and ways to upgrade it. But even without that, that hasn't come out yet, that it's just a really, truly awesome experience. Number 5 is The Colonists. This is from Mayfair Games, and this is a game that's kind of come up for me. When I first played it, I said it was a good game. It was just too long. But I realized that sometimes you just want to play a game that's that long. The Colonists is a game that takes place over 4 different eras. In fact, you could buy an expansion that adds a 5th. I've not played with that. That'd make it even more epic. And in each era, you can actually play each era as a separate game. We're talking a 3-4 hour game here. As you play it, you slowly build up an area in front of you, and then you bring in different types. I mean, it's very Euro and all these things going on, but it just, you take a leap from each era and you're getting more resources and work. It's just, there's a lot going on, but it is, I think, truly epic. Number 4 is one of the oldest games. It might be the oldest game on this list, and that is Die Macher. Die Macher is about voting in Germany, the German elections. They just remade it, and I think they actually made it a little more streamlined. The new version I haven't played yet, but the original version took usually around 4 hours. And in this, you're wheeling and dealing with your political party because you have to make coalitions with the other parties to get different things happening. And there are 7 different elections over the course of the game. Each election is taking, 20 to 30 minutes, so it makes for a fairly lengthy, involved game. It's not a game that gets to the table very often because of the length of time for me, but it is certainly one I find enjoyable, Die Macher. Number 3 is the closest, I think, on my list to not being a Euro game, but it has worker placement in it, and so I'm going to put it on, and that's Dominant Species. Dominant Species, you pick a species. You are apes or spiders or whatever, snakes, and then you're trying to become you're trying to evolve and become the biggest one. It's a worker placement game that also involves attacking and cards that blow parts of the board up. But because there's so much thought that goes into it, and you're slowly trying to expand your group out and take tiles, and there's this back and forth, it is long, it is epic. At conventions I go to, I constantly see people jumping in the games of this. There's a lot of players. This is a kind of almost like the Twilight Imperium of Euro games, Dominant Species. Number 2 is Through the Ages. Wait, I hear you shout. Through the Ages is a civilization game. And you didn't put any other civilization games on your list. That's correct. But Through the Ages feels like a Euro game. Yes, it's a Civ game, but at the end of the day, you are buying cards, using those cards to get resources. The whole thing is about resource management. Yes, there's war in it, but it's very abstracted out, and there's just so much involved with this game. I think I like it best at 2 players, frankly, but when you play with 3 or 4, it is a big, epic experience. It's one of the closest to actually the Sid Meier's Civilization computer games, I think. Not quite. There's no map. It's kind of just there and all these cards that you play in front of you, but it is a fantastic game. And the number 1 epic Euro game, according to Tom Vasel, and for me, would be Anachrony. Now, Mind Clash has many games that could be on this list. I don't enjoy all of them as much as I enjoy Anachrony. Anachrony, there is an expansion for it, and another one on the way, which still is a little mind-boggling to me, that another expansion actually was made for this game because it's so big and sprawling. The future apocalypse is coming. You are one of the factions trying to make the world follow your line of thinking after this happens. This game uses time travel, which is kind of almost code for getting a loan, essentially, but it uses time travel. There's tons of places to place your workers on the board. When you throw in the expansion, there's plastic miniatures everywhere too. Not needed, but just really cool. There's just so many options in this game, especially when you add in the expansion. It just is almost overwhelming experience, and it rises to the top for me and just gets there to be an entertaining, fun, epic experience. So there you go. Those are my top 10 epic Euro games. This is one where I definitely know other people have very strong opinions on. So write them down in the comments. Let us know what the epic games are for you. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time on the Dice Tower.